The bridge of the Vigilant hummed with a quiet efficiency, the low murmur of machinery barely perceptible beneath the tense silence. Captain Kira Dorn stood before the tactical display, her sharp eyes tracing the glowing dots on the star map, her mind racing. Humanity's defenses were spread thin, too thin. No one could deny it now, the Kryath were coming. Status report, Lieutenant Shin. Kira commanded, her voice steady but laced with an edge of urgency. Lieutenant Miko Shin, the ship's communications officer, didn't look up from his console. His fingers danced over the touchpad, sweat dotting his forehead as he filtered through the incoming data streams. We're still within the safe zone, Captain. No Kryath signatures detected within range, yet. Yet, Kira muttered under her breath, the word tasting bitter. She knew all too well what safe meant when it came to the Kryath. Safe for now. It wasn't real security. The enemy was always one step ahead. How long until we're in their territory? Mara Calder, the ship's marine sergeant, spoke up from the corner. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest, her eyes scanning the room like she was already preparing for a fight. Miko finally looked up, meeting her gaze for a moment before returning his attention to the console. At least a day. Maybe less. Our course is plotted to take us through the outer rim, but... He paused, his expression darkening. I'm picking up anomalies in the data. The Kryath could be moving faster than we anticipate. How fast are we talking? Kira's tone shifted from tactical to urgent, her voice a notch louder. Miko grimaced, tapping at the screen as if willing it to provide answers. Not sure yet, Captain. The Kryath don't broadcast like we do. They're using passive signatures. It's too quiet, too clean. He looked up from the screen, his eyes filled with concern. It's almost like they know we're coming. A chill ran down Kira's spine, and she instinctively glanced toward the viewport. Outside, the stars twinkled coldly, distant and indifferent. She could feel the weight of what was coming pressing down on her. No one had seen the Kryath for decades, and that absence had only made their legend grow. Humanity had thought they were safe. They had been wrong. Do we have any word from Earth? She asked, her voice quieter now, but the tension in her words still sharp. Mara answered before Miko could. No. If they know anything, they're not telling us. Could be they've already evacuated, or maybe they just don't have the resources to spare for us. Her voice was rough, carrying the bitterness of someone who had seen too much loss, too much silence in the face of their enemies. Kira took a deep breath, pushing down the tightness in her chest. She knew Mara was right. Earth had always been the center of humanity's strength, but in the years following the first war with the Kryath, they had weakened. The colonies out here in the fringe? They were alone. We'll handle it, she said, the words coming out stronger than she felt. We always do. Her eyes flicked to Miko. Get us ready. All systems on alert. Mara, prep your marines. Understood, Captain, Miko replied, already turning to his console. We'll be ready for anything. Mara nodded, her lips forming a grim smile. You know it. We fight, or we die trying. Kira stood alone for a moment, her gaze fixed on the star map. The Kryath were coming, and this time, humanity might not have a chance. But they'd fight. They always fought. The first crackling burst of static over the comms interrupted her thoughts. Miko's hand froze. The ship's sensors were live, but it wasn't a normal transmission. Something different. Captain, Miko said, his voice strained. It's a message. And it's directed at us. The screen flickered. The words that appeared were simple, but the weight behind them was inescapable. We have returned. Surrender, or face annihilation. Kira's jaw tightened, the familiar surge of adrenaline flooding her veins. There was no time for fear, no room for hesitation. Set course, Kira ordered sharply. Prepare for war. The bridge crew moved with practiced urgency, the ship's engines whirring to life as the stars outside began to stretch. The storm had arrived. Humanity's fight for survival was about to begin again. The Vigilant shuddered as the first wave of Kryath ships dropped out of hyperspace, their sleek, dark forms slicing through the void like predators circling their prey. Kira Dorn's heart skipped a beat as the red alert flashed across the bridge, the klaxons blaring through the walls with a deafening urgency. "Incoming, Captain!" Lieutenant Mikoshin shouted, his voice tight with panic as the readouts blinked across the tactical display. "The Kryoth are deploying fast. Too fast. They've not enough time to react," Kira finished, her voice a mixture of determination and cold focus. "Set course to the asteroid belt, Lieutenant. We'll use the terrain as cover." Miko nodded, his hands flying over the console to input the new course. "Aye, Captain. Adjusting trajectory now." "But, Captain, they're targeting us. Their weapons are charging. Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Kira commanded, turning sharply to face Mara Calder. The Marine sergeant was already up and moving, her face set with grim determination. The rest of the bridge crew moved with military precision, but Kira could feel the tension crackling in the air. This wasn't just another skirmish, it was a fight for their survival. "Shields at full power, Captain!" Miko's voice cut through the tension, but the words came too late. The first blast hit, sending a violent tremor through the ship. The lights flickered, and for a moment, the bridge seemed to hold its breath. "Damage report!" Kira barked, bracing herself against the console. "We've lost portside shielding," Miko reported, his fingers still dancing over the controls. "Hull integrity holding, but if they hit us again in that spot—" "I know," Kira said, her jaw clenched. She turned toward Mara, who was already pacing by the door, her hands gripping her rifle tightly. "We're not just running, are we?" Mara asked, her voice calm but laced with the familiar edge of a warrior. "No," Kira replied, her gaze hardening. "This fight won't be over until we make it so." Mara's lips twitched into a grin. "Good. I was hoping you'd say that." The ship jolted again, the force of the blast rattling their bones. But Kira didn't flinch. She'd seen worse. She had worse, and survived. "Get us to that belt, Miko!" she ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. The asteroid field loomed closer now, a dangerous labyrinth of rock and debris. It was their only chance to shake the Kryoth pursuit, but it was risky. A single miscalculation, and they could end up splintering their ship into dust. "We'll make it," Miko said through gritted teeth, his hands steady now as the ship deftly wove through the field of asteroids, narrowly avoiding collisions. The ship groaned, but Kira knew the Vigilant was built for this kind of fight, fast, agile, and tough. It was their edge. But even with the advantage of the field, Kira knew this wouldn't be enough. Not unless they turned the tables and struck back. "Mara," Kira said, her voice low but intense. "How fast can you get your Marines to the shuttle bay?" Mara's eyes narrowed, and without a word, she reached for her comms. "I'll get them ready in 5 minutes." "Good," Kira said, glancing at Miko's readout. "We'll give them a distraction. When your team is in position, we launch." Mara gave her a sharp nod, and Kira turned back to the viewport. The Kryoth ships were closing in, but the Vigilant had a surprise waiting for them. They didn't know it yet, but they would. Kira had no intention of letting humanity's first contact with these invaders end in defeat. The stars outside began to blur as the Vigilant shot through the asteroid field, the incoming Kryoth warships in hot pursuit. The first clash had only just begun, and this time, humanity wasn't backing down. As the ships surged forward, Kira's thoughts hardened with resolve. The Kryoth had underestimated them before. They wouldn't make that mistake again. "Prepare for counterattack," Kira muttered under her breath. "We fight back now." And with that, the battle truly began. Kira's grip tightened around the armrest as the Vigilant shuddered again, the metallic groan of the hull punctuated by the shrill whistle of the alarms. The Kryoth ships were relentless, firing in precise, coordinated bursts that shook the very foundation of their ship. It was clear now, this was no longer a simple skirmish. The enemy was hunting them down with deadly intent. "Shields holding at 40%, Captain!" Miko's voice cracked over the comms, a hint of desperation creeping in. "We can't keep this up much longer." Kira stood, her boots clicking sharply against the deck as she moved toward the tactical display. Her eyes flicked over the data, calculating their options. "We don't have time for this," she muttered. "Miko, get us out of this asteroid field. Full throttle, dodge or die." The ship lurched forward as Miko pushed the Vigilant to its limits. The dark expanse of the asteroid field blurred past, their path weaving through the jagged rocks and debris. But the Cryas ships were faster, more agile than she'd expected. The distance between them shrank with every passing second. On the bridge, the tension was palpable. Mara was silent but resolute, her eyes scanning the readouts, preparing her Marines for the worst. She didn't need to say anything to Kira. They both knew what was coming. A fight. A real one. And it would be bloody. "Captain." Miko's voice was strained now. "We're not going to make it. They've got us locked. We need to retaliate, now." Kira's jaw clenched. A cold fire burned in her chest. They were too far outnumbered, but there was one thing the Cryath had yet to realize: humanity was unpredictable. She wasn't about to go down without forcing them to understand just how much wrong that was. "Bring us around. Full arc. Prepare to engage on my mark." Her tone was low, but steely. A beat of silence followed, then Mara's quick response. "On your command?" The Vigilance swerved sharply, the engines roaring as Miko initiated the change in course. The Cryas ships followed, not yet realizing what they were about to walk into. Kira's finger hovered over the control panel as she waited. Waited for the precise moment when they would fall into the trap. "Captain," Mara said from behind her, her voice edged with expectation. "You have a plan?" "A simple one," Kira answered, narrowing her eyes as the Cryas ships drew closer. "We hit them hard. Now." Without hesitation, Kira slammed her hand down on the panel, initiating the weapons sequence. The Vigilant's forward guns roared to life. Explosions of bright, brilliant fire rained down on the nearest Cryas ship, the blast so powerful it shook the Vigilant. The enemy ships scattered in response, but they'd already been weakened. The Cryath fleet wasn't prepared for the sudden and brutal aggression. The momentum was with them. For now. "We've crippled their lead ship," Miko shouted, his eyes wide with disbelief. "They're pulling back." But Kira's instincts told her not to relax, not yet. The battle wasn't won. It had only just begun. The bridge fell into a tense silence, the hum of the ship's engines, and the pounding of her heart filling the space. But then, a sharp ping sounded on the console, and the bridge crew tensed. The Cryath weren't retreating. They were regrouping. Miko cursed under his breath. "They're coming in for a second strike. Larger fleet. They won't be expecting us," Kira muttered, her eyes hardening with resolve. She turned toward Mara. "Get your team ready. We'll hit them again, but this time, we'll hit them harder." Mara's grin was fierce. "We'll be ready." As the enemy's ships formed up for another strike, Kira's mind raced. The Cryath thought they had control, but the truth was, they hadn't encountered humans like this before. The Vigilant wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol. A beacon of humanity's refusal to bow to anyone. The battle wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And as the Cryath made their final approach, Kira Dorn's voice rang out, steady and unwavering. "Prepare to take them down. This is our fight now." The Vigilant bucked again as another volley of energy fire slammed into the shields. Kira's knuckles were white as she gripped the armrest, her mind racing. They were on the edge, the entire ship trembling under the constant barrage from the Cryath fleet. The Cryath had regrouped faster than expected, and their larger, more formidable ships now closed in, their weapons trained on the Vigilant. "Shields are down to 20%, Captain." Miko's voice was strained, but he kept his focus, his fingers flying over the controls. "We can't keep this up much longer." Kira swallowed, her thoughts racing. If the Cryath managed to land a direct hit, it would be over. The Vigilant couldn't withstand another barrage. "I'm aware, Miko. But we're not done yet," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. "Captain, we're outgunned," Mara said from behind her, her voice heavy with the weight of their situation. We need a miracle! Kira shot her a glance, a flicker of something dangerous in her eyes. You're forgetting who we are, Mara. Mara's brow furrowed. I know you're not suggesting. I am suggesting it. Kira cut in, a fierce determination settling into her features. I'm not going to let these bastards take us down. We have one shot at this. Miko, prepare the secondary weapon systems. Miko looked up, confusion flitting across his face. Secondary weapon systems? Captain, that's... I know what it is, Kira interrupted, cutting him off with a commanding tone. And if you have any faith in me, you'll trust one know what I'm doing. Miko hesitated but then nodded, his fingers already moving to engage the secondary systems. The hum of the ship's energy shifted as a low, resonant vibration rippled through the deck. The Cryos ships were closing in for the kill, their monstrous hulls looming like a pack of predators. We've got only one shot at this, Kira murmured. Get ready. Outside, the space around the Vigilant was filled with the raw beauty of the stars, but Kira's gaze was locked on the looming danger ahead. The Cryoth had underestimated humanity before. She wasn't going to let them make that mistake again. Suddenly, the tension on the bridge snapped. We're in position, Captain! Miko called out. Initiating secondary weapons systems on your mark. The countdown in Kira's mind was almost unbearable. The seconds stretched, each one a weight pressing down on her chest. She exhaled slowly. This was it. She reached forward, her fingers brushing against the control panel as if feeling the pulse of the ship itself. No, she whispered, her voice sharp and decisive. The Vigilant erupted in a blinding flash of light as the secondary weapons systems fired. A massive energy pulse shot out toward the closest Cryos ship, the beams slicing through the darkness like a knife through cloth. The shockwave from the impact caused the entire ship to lurch, the deck vibrating violently beneath their feet. For a heartbeat, the bridge crew was thrown into chaos. Alarms blared as the ship's systems scrambled to stabilize, but Kira's eyes never left the view screen. The Cryos ship at the front of the formation was dead in space, its shields obliterated by the energy pulse. The enemy fleet faltered. For the briefest moment, confusion rippled through their ranks. And that was all Kira needed. Full speed ahead, Miko! Take us into the heart of their fleet, she ordered. Miko didn't hesitate. The Vigilant roared to life, surging forward with terrifying speed, dodging the incoming fire. Their sudden movement caught the Cryoth off guard, and they scattered in disarray, their carefully coordinated attack shattered. We've got them on the run, Captain, Mara said, a grin spreading across her face. They didn't expect us to hit that hard. We've only just begun, Kira replied, her voice cold with determination. Get ready. The real fight starts now. The Cryoth were regrouping. Their pride, their arrogance, it had cost them. Now it was humanity's turn to take the fight to them. As the Vigilant surged toward the heart of the Cryoth fleet, Kira's eyes gleamed with steely resolve. There was no turning back. The tide had turned, and humanity was about to show the galaxy just what they were capable of.